What's good, Illini Nation? It's your man in the middle, Deon Thomas, bringing you nothing but the absolute best, and today is no exception. Got a unique story for you from a unique person. He has been my friend for, oh my gosh, it's been about almost 10 years now, but he's been my friend since then, and now has garnered a lot of national attention because this young man is absolutely amazing. We got Bryce Wheeler joining us tonight. And if you saw the coverage on ESPN and some of the other networks, they describe him as the blind commentator. He's a heck of a lot more than that. But we'll let you see. You'll be the judge, and you'll see how great this man is. Bryce, thank you for joining us, man. And the reason I pointed that out is I think you're much more than, I don't want to say disability, because I know that's kind of not the end term for it. And please correct me and educate me on what the end term is. But I think that description does not do you justice for what you do.
Hi, Deon. Thank you for having me on. My last name is actually Weiler, being that you now commentate with our good friend Brian Barnheart. I know how important that is for you to want to pronounce names correctly. So you and Brian sometimes get into jokes about names, and you have him pronounce the hard names first so you can figure out how to properly do them. So often media has labeled me as just being a blind sports broadcaster. But I think that my life is more than that, because I try to use my life to help people with disabilities to gain opportunities, just as I've been allowed opportunities to commentate games on the radio or to sit on the Evansville men's basketball bench. I try to use my life to give opportunities to others.
And I think you do a tremendous job as an example of that. But let's start this off very beginning. I don't think it's a tough question, but I think it's a question that everyone would want to know. Were you born with this disability, and how did you become confident enough to turn it into a strength and not a perceived weakness?
Shortly after my birth, as I was born almost 4 months premature due to either too much light or too much oxygen when I was in the hospital, it caused the retinas in my eyes to detach. My condition is called retinopathy of prematurity. Growing up, my parents always told me that I had to try twice as hard as someone who did not have a disability so that I could be successful in life. I always just used that, and I really work to show people that I can do things just as good as someone else, even though I might not be able to see. I have to do things differently, but I can still be successful in life.
And I agree. So you said do things differently. What are some of those examples? Just, you said something that your mother has said to you, and my parents have said to me, and I hope people don't think I'm comparing my race to your disability. But my mother used to always say, you have to work twice as hard in order to get ahead in this life. So it was. I understand what your mother said, but I'm also shocked that she would use that to enforce what's necessary for you to do to move ahead. But what are some of the examples, some of the things that you have done that say, hey, you know what, I'm here and I'm standing up. And also I have to say, Bryce, thank you for the correction of the pronunciation of your last name. I've been doing that for years, man. And this is the first time you've corrected me. You got to wait till we get on camera to do that, huh?
You normally don't say my last name, or else I would have told you previously.
Okay. Well, what are some of the things that you've had to do or that you've, innovated? Because this is what you are. You're an innovator in your space. What are some of those things that you've had to do?
In society as a whole, first of all, people are just judged for being different, whether it's different ethnic races or different because they have a disability. People have a hard time accepting those differences. And if they close their eyes, they would realize that everyone is just a normal person who wants to have success in the world. Since I cannot see. I really often cannot tell people by their different ethnic races or different skin colors and things like that. And I think of them more as just being an actual person. I don't really care what their skin color is or their ethnic race. And that causes them to have to overcome some obstacles and challenges in their life sometimes for various groups, but really working together, finding people who support you and who believe in you. That's really how you go about having success in life. Some things that I can think about differently were growing up, I always worked really hard to learn how to navigate my way through school, learning how to walk through the halls in elementary school or high school. And then when I got to Evansville, learn how to navigate through the Evansville campus using my cane. I had an orientation and mobility instructor who would teach me whenever I was in elementary school and middle school. It was Mrs. Jane Redmond. And whenever I was at Evansville, it was Christy Hughes. And those are just some of the ways that I think about really just learning to be independent was memorizing those routes. If I was put back on the Evansville campus today, I could still get myself to many of those buildings, and the same for Western Illinois, where I attended graduate school.
So those are, we always need others in life. One of the terms that kind of bugs me when people say, yeah, I'm self-made. I don't believe, in my opinion, anyone is self-made, because there's always, though, that person that pointed you in the right direction, that helped you, that, as you just described, helped you learn campus and how to get around. And we have our parents and others that have made us the strong individuals that we've become. If When you were going through high school, what was a typical day like for Bryce? Did you have people that were not nice, or people that were, what was the life of a young Bryce when he was in high school?
Well, for most of my high school, I attended a specialized school for individuals who are blind, the Indiana School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Indianapolis. I was receiving specialized training as to how to use a screen reading program, learning how to cook, learning how to cross streets with 8 lanes of traffic in Indianapolis. So for most of my high school, I was receiving specialized training, and it was through that specialized training that I was able to be successful at Evansville and at Western Illinois.
Oh, okay. And so when you were with these treatments, or these things that you had to learn, so growing up, what interested you? What got you interested in commentating? I guess that's it. I'm trying to find a wordy way of describing this. What made you want to be, or get into the commentating world?
How I got interested in broadcasting games was growing up listening to Brian Barnhart commentating Fighting Illini football and basketball, and Don Fisher commentating Indiana Hoosiers football and basketball. Whenever I got to college at the University of Evansville in 2010, I met Tom Benson, who was the station manager of WUEV, the Evansville student radio station. And Tom taught me how to analyze games on the radio and gave me the opportunity to broadcast games. I just tried to take advantage of as many opportunities as I could whenever I made it to college at Evansville.
So what's not being able to see the action and the things that are going on? What are some of the tips and cues and things that you use in order to be able to paint the picture the way you do?
I study the style of the play-by-play broadcaster that I am commentating with to determine whether he or she gives a lot of stats or tells a lot of stories. I also read up facts on each team's coaches and players. I try to speak to each team's head coach before the game. I'll also shoot free throws on the court before the game to figure out if the rim is loose or tight and how the ball bounces off the rim. That really helps me if the radio broadcast that I am on has access to the basket microphones that are often used on television, because I can tell how the ball is hitting the rim or bouncing off the back of the rim. And that really helps me when I'm listening to Illinois games, or that helped me on December 18th when I had the honor to be able to commentate with Brian Barnhart and Doug Altenberger for an Illinois game against St. Francis of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to get to that because I want to know that experience. You and I were able to spend a little time together during that game. But so but it's amazing to me as someone that's sighted to the descriptions that you can give when the ball hits the rim. Because I've listened to you, and you're so good at what you do, that I marvel at how you can get these things done, and not be able to see. Because I can tell you right now, I think if I closed my eyes and tried to do what you do, I don't think I could do it. And I've played and coached and commentated at the various levels, and I just think what you do is absolutely remarkable, Bryce. I do.
The difference is I've trained my ears to listen to those things, and I've shot thousands of free throws. I've been sitting on basketball benches for 4 years at Evansville while teams warmed up, and I got to hear the ball hitting off the rim, hitting off the backboard, going short and bouncing over the front of the rim, or going short and being kicked out off the front of the rim because it didn't have enough arch or arc on the shot to get it over the rim. So I've trained my ears just as you train your eyes when you commentate with Brian. It's only so good I can get commentating a game that I cannot see. But if I use my ears well, I can commentate it as well as I can. And there's always going to be things that I cannot do just because I cannot see them. I always learn things when I'm listening to yourself or Doug Altenberger commentating about how a player could have held his or her follow through better, or how they should have dribbled the ball lower, or things like that. Things that I can never tell on a broadcast because I cannot see them.
Wow. I mean, it's, I don't know. I'm a little giddy over here, B. So you got to excuse me a little bit. So tell me a little bit about the 4 years at Evansville, when you were with Coach Marty Simmons, and all of the Illini fans will remember Marty Simmons. He was a great basketball player, let alone went on to be a great coach down at SIUE Edwardsville, and brought them from the second division and was always winning there, and then went on over to to Evansville, and was successful there. As a matter of fact, he was successful there with Jeff Alexander, who is now an assistant coach. So tell me a little bit about your time and the time you spent with Coach Simmons, and on the bench at Evansville.
Sitting on the Evansville basketball bench changed my life because it gave me the opportunity to experience college basketball, to be a part of a team. Those were all things that I really dreamed about doing. That was not something Coach Simmons had to let me do, but he saw the opportunity and saw he could give me a chance to experience sports. And that's something that people can extend to individuals of any disability, whether it's in sports or giving someone with a disability the opportunity to work for their company. I think about sitting on the Evansville basketball bench every single day of my life. And it's something that I'm so grateful for, that I had the 4 years to do that, because it really showed me that if you have people in your life who care about you, that you can be successful. And I try every day to pay those opportunities back that Coach Simmons gave me to help people with disabilities to be able to live their dreams and break down barriers, and to also help give people with disabilities those same opportunities that I had at Evansville with sitting on the basketball bench and being able to commentate over 90 games on the radio.
So you mentioned Brian Barnhart as the inspiration. Can you remember the first game you heard him commentate that sparked a young Bryce into where you are today?
I cannot tell you the first game, but I can tell you that it was during the 2002-2003 season. And just listening to Brian for the first 3 or 4 years, when I was really learning the rules of basketball, especially during 2002, 2003, that season, and 2003, 2004, he really helped me to understand a game that before I started listening to him, I had no idea how basketball worked. Now, when I got to Evansville and I first sat on the basketball bench, there were things that I learned about basketball that I had no idea of. For example, that a team shoots on the opposite basket from its bench in the first half, and it shoots by the basket near its bench in the second half, except at Vanderbilt, which is entirely opposite, and they switch things around at Vanderbilt's home gym.
Oh, you aren't kidding. Vanderbilt's gym is, for those that don't know, where you sit on the baseline and you're not actually sitting on the sidelines. But I'll tell you this, as a former coach, I enjoyed that, because I had my team, running the offense next to me when in the second half of games, instead of being on the other end, get a little bit more control when they're right there next to you than when they're on the other end of the court. But so while you were at Illinois, I mean, everyone, I mean, not Illinois, sorry, at Evansville, everyone knows Jeff Alexander now. He's been on staff with Illinois since Coach Underwood has been here. Were you able to have any interactions during your time at Evansville?
I did speak with Coach Alexander. He reminds me a lot of my friend Brad Stevens, who's the president of basketball operations with the Boston Celtics and was coaching them for a few years. Coach Alexander is quiet, at least whenever he was at Evansville. When he says something, it's very important. He doesn't ramble on like me. He talks a little, and when he says something, it's very important. So you better pay attention to it. I would think of Brad Stevens every single day when I'd speak with Coach Alexander, and they're both the same men. They really care about helping others and giving back. They're very calm, very laid back and quiet.
Well, and that's why they've both been extremely successful in what they've done. You know, of course, Coach Alexander's dad was one of the best coaches that ever coached in the state of Illinois, and he's kind of following in his footsteps. And now is at U of I, and will one of these days possibly be a head coach somewhere if he chooses to. But so you've done a lot more than college sports. How did you get into baseball?
I started helping baseball teams through figuring out email formats because I was struggling to find employment after finishing graduate school at Western Illinois. So I started to figure out email formats for professional sports teams, and I started emailing owners and executives of those teams.
You say you started figuring out email formats. Was it something that you did, or was it you found some software that would help with your disability? What do you mean?
So there's various email formats for emails. Some companies are say the first letter of their first name followed by the full last name at whatever the company is.com. So I figured out what all of those email conventions were, and then I started plugging those into sports teams or companies. Sometimes for the CEO of a company or a sports team, I have to go on their Wikipedia page because I need to figure out what their middle name is because I need that first letter to make that email go through. So if you're a CEO of a company or someone very high up in a sports team, such as the owner or the team president, sometimes you won't have the same email format as everyone else so that your emails are really limited. But I figured out how to determine what that is and email the people I was interested in speaking with.
So you just use a word that I would use to describe you, determined. So I'm going to assume that when you first started doing this, you probably got a lot of um, non-replies and things of this nature. What gave you okay, I got to stick to this. And if I want to do this, I got to stick to it. And doing so, who was that first team that contacted you?
I got many replies back to my emails. I always use the subject line, speaking with you, I hope, as I am blind. And that always gets people interested to open the email. I'm not sure why, but it works for me in every single thing that I try to do. So I always use the same subject line because people find that interesting. I
Hmm.
started helping out Baltimore's baseball team with the Orioles in 2016. They were one of the first people who had reached out to me, and I've helped the Orioles for the past 5 years doing programs for people with disabilities when the Orioles were the first team to wear Braille on their jerseys in 2018. I helped set up that event for them. I've helped them to make their social media more accessible, and it's been a real honor to be able to help the Orioles to become a very accessible team for fans of all disabilities.
Wow, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So with the Orioles, are you help? Has anyone else sought you out since doing these things with the Orioles?
I may be helping out some other teams soon. I am currently helping out Latch, which is a software company. I've helped out Gray Television in the past. I have helped a educational company as well, Everfi. I have various pending companies, but we have not agreed on anything yet. So those are the ones that I have helped and the ones that I still help.
Yeah, I'm sure your family is super proud of what you've done so far. I mean, you've done more than most people without disabilities in your short time span, man. That is impressive. Tell me about the Beautiful Lives Project.
The Beautiful Lives Project works to help people of all disabilities to experience sports and other programs throughout the country. Those other programs are events in art, such as painting or sculpture, music, such as learning how to sing, or other programs like that. We also work with community partners throughout the country to help people with disabilities to find employment and to gain job training.
For those that don't know, please go on and check out the Beautiful Lives Project. As Bryce is the co-founder of the Beautiful Lives Project, which is doing amazing things, not just for unsighted individuals, but as he said, for people across the board, and opening up and giving them opportunities to, possibly become the next Bryce Weiler, to understand that you can do basically whatever it is you want to do in this world with a little bit of hard work. So, Bryce, you mentioned earlier about, you know what? Before we do that, Bryce, let me get to this ad read, because I know we're just gonna. I'm fascinated by what you're doing. So let me get to this before we move on to the next topic. Let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now's the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season in full swing, get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older, and if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, as I was saying, Bryce, you've done so much, and now you have the Beautiful Lives Project, where you're creating opportunities for other individuals like yourself. And then in this past season, well, this season, not past season, this season, you had the opportunity to sit down with your idol and broadcast a game. How was that?
On December 18th, 2021, I was able to commentate with Brian Barnhart whenever Illinois played St. Francis. And Brian said that I'd be able to come on during some of the game, as I told you. And probably the best part for me was we got through the first segment where he was interviewing me and asking me about Illinois and St. Francis. And I'd spoke with Rob Kremmel, who's a good friend of mine who coaches St. Francis, and visited with Coach Kremmel before the game. And Brian walked back to me and said, do whatever you have to do now, because you're going to be on with me the entire game. And that was really one of the best compliments that I'd ever received, just because Brian really knew that I could be on with him the whole game. And it was great being on with Doug Altenberger. I analyzed some of the game that was going on. I jumped in front of Doug so I could analyze a little more. You came down and sat with me, and we had a visit, and they thought I was still on the radio, but I was talking to you. And it was just really a great day. And most importantly to me, though, is the fact that Brian believed that I could commentate with him. Even though he'd never done a game with me, he knew I could do it. And it's what people with disabilities need, is someone to give them that opportunity, because oftentimes someone's never worked with a person with a disability before. But if people just believe in individuals with disabilities, as Brian did with me, then a lot more people with disabilities will be able to live their dreams and have success in life.
Oh, I love that, Bryce. You know what? I think part of the problem is not the person with the disability. It's the person that does not have the disability, and their fear and ignorance of working with someone that does. And I say that because you and I first spoke. I was at Lewis and Clark, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I was at my second year at Lewis and Clark the first time we spoke. And you never came across to me as someone that was lacking in any area. Am I right? That is. So it's been almost 10 years, no?
I spoke to you in March of 2013. Your Lewis and Clark team was playing at Olney Central College as a part of the conference tournament. Unfortunately for your team, Olney Central College won. For my friend Mike Burris, the former head Blue Knights basketball coach that kept his team moving on in the 2013 tournament. And I was commentating the game that evening on the radio with Mark Weiler, the longtime voice of Olney Central College athletics and Olney Lady Tigers and Tigers sports here. He does whatever game needs to be done. He doesn't always do the Lady Tigers, but if Steve Hof, a big Illinois fan, is busy, Mark Weiler is a broadcaster of all skills, and he will do whatever game needs to be done. I was commentating that game with Mark Weiler and Shannon Hof, a longtime junior college basketball coach, brought you over and introduced you to me. And we talked college basketball and talked about your team. And it was really an honor to be able to meet you and to be able to visit with you on that day in March.
Well, I mean, Bryce, as much as I love you, man, you didn't have to be as detailed in that and commentate on the loss. We were okay just talking about the date. No, but I'll tell you, it was an honor to meet you, man, and to see and learn about all of the things that you were doing and had done and how well you did them was fascinating. Even though, again, the next time if we're talking and I ask this question to you, I don't want the lost part included.
Right.
You can go through all of that stuff and not include the fact that I lost. But no, Mike had a good time.
That was not my proudest moment with you, though.
Uh-oh.
My proudest moment with you was in 2016, 2017. I wasn't with you in person, but you started commentating with Brian Barnhart on the radio. And I was listening to you, and I could tell you were a little nervous because you'd never done it before. And that reminded me of whenever I started commentating on the radio. I called you on the phone and I said, Deon, you're a famous basketball player. You're the leading scorer at Illinois. And most importantly, you know how to show life beyond basketball. Just go do those things, have fun being with Brian, and just being able to listen to you that year, become more comfortable, and listening to you every single year after, every time that I get to hear you on the radio is something that's really important to me because I just enjoy the fact that we're friends and being able to listen to you have success and give your basketball knowledge to others, but also show others that there's life beyond basketball. And you do all those things so well. So just listening to you during that 16-17 season were some of the proudest moments that I've ever listened to a game on the radio, just listening to one of my friends being able to broadcast and just listening to you grow as a broadcaster and share your life and your experiences with Illinois Nation and everyone else listening to Fighting Illini broadcast.
Well, I'm going to tell you first and foremost, and ladies and gents, that is a true story, and I took it to heart. So I do appreciate that. And you've had some other commentary for me off air, of course, about my job and things that I was doing, and I appreciate it because you were always spot on, and it has definitely helped me to become better at what I do. So I appreciate that, my friend. And today, if I am not mistaken, and you correct me, is a special day for you, right?
It is my birthday, January 25th. Yes, Deon, I'm 31 today.
Happy birthday, my friend. And you share a birthday with a very special person that was in my life that made my life even possible. Today is actually my grandmother's birthday. Wow. So I was fascinated, and now I see why you and I have clicked so much, because you share the birthday with the woman that made Deon Thomas who he is.
You've talked so much about how your grandma really helped you to stay level-headed and all that whenever everyone was recruiting you, and she still treated you the same as when you really hadn't had the success in basketball. I think that's really helped you to stay the same way now and to give back and to help others who are in the Big Ten or who are at high level college basketball throughout the country to realize that you still have to stay the same person that you were whenever no one really knew about who you were.
That's true. And she also had a belt too. So that helped. A little corporal punishment back in the day. But no, Bryce, I love to do this. And for every guest, I like to give them the last minute to address. Before we get to that, I know you're an Illini basketball fan. How did you become an Illinois basketball fan? That's what everybody needs to know. The guy is an Illinois fan. Well, you kind of have to be when you come from when you're born where you were born.
My Uncle Steve took me to games when I was little, but mainly listening to Brian Barnhart.
Oh, so we got Brian. So I'm going to tell him today. I'm going to tell maybe when we're on air, you turn Bryce into a Fighting Illini fan. So, but yeah, I'd like to give my guests, Bryce, the last minute to address Illini Nation any way you choose.
It's important to give people with disabilities opportunities to have success in life. Extend to people with disabilities those same opportunities that I was given by Marty Simmons and Tom Benson, because it'll change your life just as it's changed my life with the opportunities that I've been given. You'll be able to realize that a person with a disability can do anything that he or she chooses in his life if they're only just given those opportunities. I hope everyone checks out the Beautiful Lives Project website, www.beautifullives.org. I love to have anyone host some events with us, or if they have individuals with disabilities in their life, to have them participate or contact me and tell me what type of events they'd like to set up. Hopefully people are also willing to donate to us, as we're always looking for funding to set up more events throughout the country and to help people with disabilities to find job training and employment. Everyone's so fortunate to be able to watch and to listen to my friend Deon Thomas on this podcast because of what he does telling basketball stories, but he also weaves in stories about life and stories about people having opportunities. And that's what really makes sports be what it is. It's not really about the wins and the losses. It's about the lessons that you learn from sports.
I would agree with you 100% on that, Bryce. Tell the people how they can contact you.
They can email me if they would choose to do so at bryce@beautifullives.org, BRYCE at beautifullives.org. They could also follow me on Twitter if they'd like to do that. My Twitter is at Bryce Weiler, at capital BRYCE, capital WEILER. The website for the Beautiful Lives Project is www.beautifullives.org. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. If people would like to send me a request to connect, I'll accept that. And that's a various range of ways that people can get a hold of me.
Well, Bryce, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your story. I appreciate your courage, your tenacity, your determination. Keep doing it, man. And as you know, if there's anything I can do to help you, all you have to do is let me know. I'm always there for you, brother.
Thank you so much, Deon, for your friendship and for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. So Illini Nation, we are going to shut this down because I have to get ready and prepare for tonight's basketball game against Michigan State. Let's go out there and beat them Spartans. Love you, Illini Nation. But before we go, always remember, check out the Field of 68 Media. They are the parent company that carries Champaign on Ice, and they carry great content from 67 other major universities across the country. Check them out because we have a lot of good people that are broadcasting on here. And for my sponsors over at Bet River Sportsbook, thank you very much for all that you do. Could not have Champaign on Ice without you. Love and peace.